Welcome to your dose of wowness. Imagine you and I are sitting across from each other in a dimly lit room. Just you, me, and the echoes of the history we've been walking through together. We spent the last 4 explainers completely tearing down the walls of the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Knights Templar, and the Rothschilds family. We watched 4 immense organizations and one legacy be built from absolute scratch, heavily mythologized, brutally destroyed, and then entirely replaced by legend. But today we step back. We aren't looking at a single case study right now. We're looking at the absolute core of what this entire 5-part secret societies arc actually means. We're changing up the format today just a bit, because we need to talk directly about what these 4 organizations and one family actually teach us. You see, the answer to why human beings build secret societies isn't cynical. It's not simply because power is always corrupt. No, secrets exist because some truths are just too massive, too dangerous, or maybe too fragile to be held out in the open. And the mythology that surrounds them, that exists because the human desire to believe someone, somewhere, is in absolute control is literally one of our most desperate psychological needs.
You know, we usually ask the wrong question about all of this. We ask what a secret hides. We want to know what's locked inside the vault, what's behind the heavy door, or what's buried under the oath. But we really need to turn the lens around here. What does keeping a secret actually do to us? What does the heavy psychological burden of holding a secret do to the human mind and body? Because it physically changes you. The mental effort of suppressing information in a social setting creates a massive cognitive weight. It's not just some abstract idea floating around in your head. It sits heavily in your bones.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The secret is the ceremony. That's a punch you really need to feel. Secrecy isn't primarily about hidden information. It's about the boundary it creates between the people who know and the people who don't. Think about the Masonic third-degree initiation. The words to that ritual have been sitting in public libraries for hundreds of years, so the words aren't the secret. The intense experience of speaking those words in the dark, surrounded by people who have sworn the exact same oath, is an entirely untransmittable, internal event. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why these boundaries matter so much. As psychologist Michael Slepian points out, the shared possession of a secret creates trust more effectively than almost any other social mechanism out there. Why? Because it creates mutual vulnerability. The cognitive burden of keeping that boundary intact is literally what binds people together. Think about it. When you and I hold a secret, we both have something severe to lose if that boundary gets broken. My safety depends entirely on your silence, and your discretion depends on my loyalty. We're bound by the shared, heavy effort of keeping the outside world out. So this psychology translates directly into the sociology of how brotherhoods actually work in practice. Enter the concept of a costly signal. It's an action demonstrating commitment by requiring the trusted party to do something entirely irrational if they actually intended to defect. Let's frame sociologist Diego Gambetta's concept here because it's a huge realization. Masonic oaths and Templar vows, they weren't dark, global conspiracies. They were substitutes for legal enforcement. In a medieval world where you couldn't just call a court to enforce a contract across religious or national borders, you needed a different kind of guarantee. You needed a costly, public, and frankly embarrassing vow. The ritual itself was the technology of trust. Understanding this dynamic really helps us sweep through their historical arcs of decline, because every single one of these societies was eventually dismantled by a mechanism that was present in its structure from the very beginning. Let's look at the 4. 1. The Freemasons. They're fading through redundancy. They offered equality in networks when the world couldn't, but then the world went ahead and built universities and civil rights. 2. The Illuminati. Destroyed by misrepresentation. Their extreme secrecy made them completely defenseless when a government published selective lies about them. 3. The Templars. Eradicated by envy. They were untouchable, which was an absolutely intolerable provocation to a king who owed them money. And 4. The Rothschilds. Weaponized visibility. They put their name on the door just to survive, and that very visibility made them the ultimate target. Which brings us to the absolute core realization of our entire journey here. A conspiracy theory is a technology of trust, built by specific people for specific purposes. Let that sink in for a second. You really need to understand this aggressively. A conspiracy theory is not some innocent mistake made in good faith. It's a deliberately constructed weapon. It is engineered. Uncertainty is intolerable. Your brain fundamentally rejects it. When the world feels too random, too vast, and just way too dangerous, your mind misfires. Cognitive scientists call this agent detection bias. When bad things happen in a highly complex modern system, we desperately reach for a pattern. We demand an author for our pain. A secret society controlling everything in the shadows is a terrifying answer, sure, but it is an answer. It gives us a villain.
The conspiracy theory competes not against truth, but against complexity. And complexity almost always loses. True explanations are messy. They involve massive systems and millions of uncoordinated choices. They're utterly useless as a source of emotional comfort. The myth provides a map. It gives you a face and a shadow in the dark. It makes the terrifying chaos of the world feel intentional, and by making it intentional, it makes it bearable.
But the builder of that map doesn't care about your comfort. The myth is a weapon first. These theories are actively deployed to absorb popular anxiety. They're used to justify the suppression of threats. They're engineered to distract from actual harm. The Bavarian government built the Illuminati myth specifically to crush Enlightenment reform. And hear me clearly on this. The exact same mechanisms that destroyed the Illuminati back in 1785 are operating at scale on your social media feeds right now in 2026. This explainer is your field guide to recognizing manufactured myths in real time.
So, the crucial point here is this absolute hard and fast rule for navigating the modern world. Follow the benefit, find the builder. Whenever you encounter a neatly packaged story about a hidden cabal, you need to ask yourself who actually benefits from your misplaced anger. The builder of the myth is never the person named as the villain. The architect of the lie is always the one pointing the finger. We're forever caught in this trap between two completely legitimate human needs. On one hand, the need for transparency demands a visible world where power is fully accountable and open. We need the Enlightenment's open world to govern ourselves fairly. But on the other hand, the need for sanctuary is equally real. We desperately need safe, hidden spaces to protect fragile trusts, experimental thoughts, and vulnerable relationships that the glaring light of the open world would instantly burn away. You just can't have one without some version of the other.
Knowledge costs something. I have to look you in the eye right now and admit that understanding these mechanisms completely ruins the romantic fun of the myth. You can no longer watch a music video, spot a triangle, and feel that thrill of a hidden underworld. The magic trick is totally dead once you see the strings. But trading that illusion for a practically navigable reality, that's a trade you absolutely have to make.
But here's the profound truth of it all. The lie did not win. The Freemasons enacted truth over survival in candlelit rooms. The Illuminati tried to build human dignity in Ingolstadt. The Templars protected the vulnerable on the dangerous roads of the Holy Land. Mayor Amschel Rothschild built deep trust on a locked street. Now they all faced fire, theft, and absolute destruction. But their ideas, democracy, global finance, true equality, those survived the fire. The structures burned to the ground, but the concepts escaped and rebuilt the modern world. We are the species that builds shelters for its most important truths. We've always created these sanctuaries because the world has never been entirely safe for everything to be set out in the open. We build the lodge, the order, the oath. They fail eventually, sure, but the attempt tells us exactly who we are. The question of what is worth protecting and at what cost is literally the oldest question we have. And now, you know the answer.
60. Just look at that number. Let it sit there with you for a second.
Thank you for 60 days. 2/3 of our entire journey is complete. We've built an enormous archive of history, truth, and clarity together. You stayed in the room. You did the work. You looked at the absolute hardest parts of human nature and you didn't blink. But don't think for a second that we're slowing down now. Week 9 is coming, and the ground beneath you is about to shift entirely. So what happens when everything you thought was solid starts to move? Are you ready?